Hello and welcome to VLearn, Virtual Learning Network. This is Session 18 of Administration Theory, Formal and Informal Organization. Topics to be covered: Introduction, Organization, its meaning and definition, Formal Organization, Characteristics of Formal Organization, Functions of formal organization, informal organization, why informal organization, characteristics of informal organization, functionings of informal organization, interdependence of formal and informal organization. So after having an understanding about the bureaucracy, we are actually going to discuss about the organization in this session. Organization, yes, it is one of the related part of administration theory. If we talk about the concepts of administration theory, the administrative concepts, that concepts was very similar with the concepts of the organization used by today's organization. So if we talk about organization, what exactly it is? It is the framework, kind of, we can say that, in which the various activity is going to be performed. It is basically done to have, we can say that many resources was performed in the one organization, and many activities are conducted in that area, in that framework, to achieve the goals in terms of bringing out the finished product for the serving in the market, at the same time bringing out with the objective fulfillment. So in that case, yes, it facilitates the proper utilization of men, material, money from the achievements of the goal. Manager will come across the organization and the pursuit of everyday activities, and the post office and the municipality, the bank, the office of the agriculture extension officers, panchayat office, and the railway stations, etc. are the example of the organization. So yes, if we talk about the governmental organization, so we can take the very good examples in representing the organization: the post office, municipality, banks, at the same time agriculture extensions, panchayati offices, railway stations. When the certain goals have to be achieved, and when the individual have to come together and share the work and act with the understanding over a period of a time, and the organization is basically formed out. So in that case, they have certain kind of objective and goals to be performed. At the same time, they comes together and share the work and act with the understandings. What exactly organization means? It is definitely giving the ideas about the goal, about the resources working. So organization is basically a pattern of relationship between person in the enterprises, so arranged as to fulfill the enterprise's function. So the functioning of organization depends upon the formulation of a policy, preparation of a plans in accordance with the policies and their implementation. So it is always there to organization always have a pattern to be performed. They have a relations between the person and an entrepreneur. They are performed as the enterprise's function. So the functioning of the organization depends upon the formulations of policy also. So organization always consist of policies, plans, and their implementation and their formulation. In an organization, top management is responsible for the policy formulation. Middle management is basically performed for programming and planning and ranking the files of the implementation. So it is always related to different principle which worked in the organization and performed in the organization. So principle of hierarchy basically ensures that the rank, the file is accountable to the middle management, and middle management is accountable to the top management. We can simply state that in that way, that organization always have a certain kind of hierarchy in it. Yeah, that means they always share a subordinate and superior relationship. In that hierarchy, there was levels in the organization which performed. That levels are top management, middle level, and yes, at the same time the lower level. So in that management, the top management is basically related to the middle, and middle is related to the lower and top both. So that relation between the top and middle management, and middle related to the top and the lower management, is basically represent the full picture of the organization. Top management always pass the order to the middle pass on these work to the lower level. At the same time, whatever the queries and the work related to the lower management is represented by the middle management to the top management. So this kind of work is performed in the organization. Thus, the superior-subordinate relationship made possible through hierarchy ensure the tasks are assigned are fixed for different levels that facilitate the smooth achievement of goals. Organizations are also classified as in a formal and informal based upon the significance attached to the structure or the human side of enterprises. It is always the proper hierarchy, proper working of hierarchy through which the tasks are assigned, tasks are fixed. So the organization are basically classified as formal and informal to define the organization's proper working. Formal organization. One of the area in the field of organization theory has enhanced the attention of the scholar is that the role of formal and informal organization. Formal organization is one which is deliberately planned and designed and duly sanctioned by the competent authority. So it is the organization as shown in the organizational chart and described by the manuals and rules. It is an organization as appear to be observed from the outside. It is the customary of any organization to prepare a chart and forming the structure. If we talk about the formal organization have a proper well-defined hierarchy. They have a proper working of their tasks. They have a field of the proper performance. They engaged in the work. They have authorities and responsibility rights to flow in it. They give the proper paths to flow of a communication in the organization. It is basically what recorded structure of the organization. Every organization form out the structure, what kind of responsibilities and roles they have. Through that structure, they prepare the different work. So this is organization is shown on the organization chart, and they have their manuals and rules. So that comes into the formal organization. With their rules and with their regulations, they have their structure, they performed well. So it is an organization as it appears to be observed from the outside, and it is customary for an organization. So this is what exactly a chart. We will take the example of Department in Food Agriculture. So this what structure we are seeing, they have a straight line structure. So this structure was basically stating the formal organization. What exactly the formal organization? So ministry, secretary, joint secretary, deputy secretary, assistant, under secretary, section officer, senior assistant, junior assistant. So this kind of hierarchy they have. So in that case, yes, this is always related to the rules and regulations, the flow of authorities, perform according to their work. So this all comes into that part. Formal organization is basically the very important, or we can say that it gives the very good idea about the organization, that how it's performed. So according to the Charles Bernard, formal organization is basically a system of consequently coordinate activity of the force of two or more people. So it is what the very much good flow of your activities, that how your activity is going to be passed on. So individual agrees to work in an organization because they are prepared to contribute their service, and they basically receive in returns the certain benefit. So thus the formal organization enabled designing of an organization. Formal organizations was basically to design an organization, identify the levels of decisions making, how you were going to allocate the duties, responsibilities, and ensuring the smooth performances, that the proper working of the performances. So at the same time, yes, this is what related to the individual agreed to work in an organization because they are prepared to contribute their services. They are prepared to work on that part. So that comes into formal organization. If we talk about the characteristics of formal organization, it is basically a frame through which the organized effort is directed from achieving the goals. That is, it is the framework in which overall organization is going to be performed. We can straight away say that it is the ideas, or we can say that it is the area in which the organization is going to be worked in. So, and yes, they have few characteristics. In first, there is legal status, then another is division of work, primacy of structure, premise, rules and regulation. If it consider these factors, these characteristics make the organization having a more clear ideas and more proper adaptations of the concept. Legal status was basically the formal organization is that it is backed by the legal sanctions. The establishment of an organization at the government level requires the enactment by a parliament or a legislature. So in that case, yes, income tax department basically worked on that existing spark, and they were basically worked to bringing out the law which enables the organization. They're bringing out the proper working of the organization, and yes, at the same time they lead up with the all legal formalities, legal activity which is done in the organization which comes into the existence, the authorities which are performed in the organization. So personnel working in the various departments in the discharge of their official works are backed by the authority of law. That means there are always a certain kind of authorities which is formed and bringing out the proper working in the organization. Division of work. This is what divide the work in the organization, bring out the proper flow in the organization, have the specialities worker in your organization. It's existing is made possible through the formal organization. So formal organization basically indicates the level of management and designation of the officers and their areas of operations, make it very convenient from the division of work. Primacy of structure is basically informal organization which emphasize on the lead of design and structures. There is an absence of structure and illogical, cruel, wasteful and inefficient, but the structure is clearly defined and roles of individual working in the organization is clearly spread out. So the structure also describes the communication flow and relationship between the members. When it comes to the premises, yes, formal organization are relatively permanent than other. Through they adapt to the environmental condition and change the structure and even objectives, they are generally created to last a long time. So the formal organization not only lasts long time, but they grow over the time. So rules and regulations, another very important formal organization concept, which gives us the idea of a well-formulated rules and regulations of the organization, which gives us the ideas about how these rules and regulations going to be performed in the organization. Now functions of formal organization, what kind of functions they are going to be performed? It is undertake several functions. In the first place, it facilitates determining of a goals and objective, in the absence of which it would be difficult to direct the skills of a men and a women to accomplish these started goals. So in that case, formal organization always have a certain purpose to be performed, certain goals and objectives to be performed. Whereas formal organizations spell out the nature and scope of the activity of a different unit within the organization. It is always related to how to come up with the new ideas, how to come up with the different units and different work. You have to identify the nature, the scope, in what business you are and how you can expand this business. At the same time, formal organization facilitates the fulfillment of other functions also. This is what to identify each and every function of the organization, each and every department of the organization. If one department is performing well, that doesn't mean that others are not performing. It is always stated that each activity are coordinated in the organization and is performed to be linked. So it provides the basic structure through which the government or any other enterprises function. So they are what related to the basic ideas, basic structure of the enterprises. Then informal organization is basically related to when there was no hierarchy, when there was no proper structure, this organization only have a behavior of individual. So it is the aggregate of person, contract and interactions and associated grouping of a people. So informal organization is also defined as a pattern of an actual behavior of a people working in an organization. So thus the informal organizations are often viewed as a shadow organization and they are ill-defined and difficult to determine. So they do not have defined organizational goals. The relation between the members therefore are not specific. So it is always related to have the good ideas, have the proper ideas about the proper working of the behavior and proper actual working of the behavior. It is always related to come up with the aggregate of personal contacts and yes, interactions of the people. So organization as a pattern of actual behavior is working in the organization. That is why it is what we can say that it is difficult to understand. Due to this behavior, it is very much difficult to get the idea about the organization. Yes, it is only focusing on the relationship between the person who were performing in the organization. Apart from that, they don't relate it to the organization's work, organization's goals, their perspectives, their viewpoint, their authority, responsibility. There was no this kind of concept entered into the informal organization. By informal organization, yes, Firstly, the individual joined in an informal organization to satisfy their social need, because people always want somebody to talk with them, to have discussions with them, share their feelings and share their anxieties to them. So in that case, it is always required to satisfy himself as a social person. It is always there in an informal organization. Secondly, individual drives personal comfort in the social relation, which is called the solidarity, social integration and or a social security. Individual basically related to the personal comfort, that is what they want from the society. They want to live in society and togetherly to be coordinated with it or apart from it. So in that case, this kind of scenarios, this kind of comfort also related in by informal organization. Third, every individual experiences the tension and frustration in the organization while performing their jobs. To overcome this, they seek the compassion and the understanding. So it is always related to come up with the individual experiences, the tensions, the frustrations which are working in the organization. Fourthly, informal organization enables the members to get assistance in the meeting their organization objective. It is always related to understand the informal organization and get the ideas about the assistant in meeting their organization objectives. Fifthly, informal organization provide opportunities to individuals to realize their creativity talent. Yes, sometimes having interactions with the society, people having interactions with friends, with family, they identify their creativity concepts, in what they are good. In that case, yes, this is what very important in informal organization. This is another benefit which informal organization provides. Sixthly, every organization had certain values, and the preservation of which is dear to the group. So these values are developed and perspective by this. Finally, the members of an organization is basically related to the wants, known what is going on in the organization. It is what to understand that what are going in the organization. For this purpose also there was an informal organization. So informal organization develop a system of the channel of communication which travel very fast. Yes, because they have no restrictions, because there was no particular hierarchy, particular flow, particular path. So they have no direction. They can flow in any direction, in any way. They are the advantage of enabling the members of the organization, that is just that members are performing and they were interacting with each other and discussing the things with each other. So this is what exactly the inflow with having a new structure. Characteristics of informal organization. Yes, formal organizations having a very unique characteristic. That's very true. They have a very selective characteristic. So in that case, first is what organization member think and act alike when they are the person from the similar nature, similar learning, similar concepts. In that case, they were related. They come up with these standards of behavior which are enforced by them. Secondly, informal organization begins pressure on the members to conform to the standard of behavior accepted by the group, since the member of a group desires satisfaction from their association. It is always related to get in to perform in the group. That means you have a fixed behavior, and in that behavior you are performing in the group. You were as a member of a group and associated with them. So just to satisfy that association or that working, you come up with the informal organization. Another is one to find a different style of leadership that will lead to have exercising their powers, exercising their responsibilities, duties, at the same time understanding that how you are going to perform in the groups. So that will lead to having a leadership also. Leader, because of his influence, is very high in the organization, to that lead them. Functioning of informal organization. Yes, informal organization no doubt help the formal organization, and yes, at the same time they contribute to missing the element of the member of the formal organization. So in that case, it is always provide much faster mode of communication. That's very true. The informal organization is, as we said, they have no directions to be performed. That person can talk anything about any person to anybody. So in that concept, the informal organization works. So in that case, this is the fastest mode of communication. And yes, that is why it is called as a grapevine in the organization. They were wonderful for separating accurate, incomplete, disordered information. Spreading of such rumors create a confusions, and yes, to several problems in the organization also. Second thing in this, informal organizations comes into the existing of the perspectual certain values, that is always related to the person thinking, person perceptions, person understanding related to that information. So that is, it's bring out the informal organization in a more crucial scenarios. Then other is, instead of conformity to the group standard, yes, it also own the difunctionalities. Interdependence, yes, these two kind of organization is very interrelated. That means if we talk about that, formal organization is always required in the organization to bringing out the proper working. It is visualized kind of thing. So in that case, when there was a formal organization, there must be an informal organizations, because people, we are living society. People in the organization who are performing, they are social element, and yes, they're going to talk, they're going to discuss. At the same time, they want them to be performed in the society in a better manner. So in that case, there must be an informal organization. And in real world also, managers can use informal organization to pass on the various information and to make them aware about the task of the organization. In that case, yes, informal organization is the one of the appropriate and fastest mode to discuss something. So society is structured by the formal organization. They are visualized and the conditions by the informal organization. A meaningful insight into the personalities of its key member, the roles they play are equally necessary to understand the dynamics of the working organization. So there are a few questions which you have to do it yourself. First is, define the formal organization. Explain the characters of the formal organization. What are the difunctions of the informal organization? So this is all about for the today's session. We are winding up here. Thank you so much. Happy learning. We learn.